Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo, ba ba. Who's the man who will speak the truth? Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo, ba ba. Lone candles, that man. Who's the man who will bring light into your life? Boo, ba ba, ba ba ba, boo. Ba-ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who digs through human excrement to present you the gems? Boo, ba-ba, ba-boo, ba-boo, ba-ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who kinda sometimes knows what he's talking about? Boo, ba-ba, ba-ba-da-boo. Ba-ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who has a scatterbrained, low IQ, and weak memory recall? Boo, ba-ba, ba-ba-da-boo. Ba-ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who plays games and complains that he sucks at them? Boo, ba-ba, ba-ba-da-boo. Ba-ba, lone candles, that man. Who's the man who has been accused of several attempts of bestiality? Boo, ba-ba, ba-ba-da-boo. Ba-ba, lone candles, that man. Lone candles here for you to bring light into your life. He will figure things out for you and then get confused and start cussing at himself, at you, and God. Okay, welcome to Lone Candle Live. Everything appears to be working. This is another episode of ReplyGuying with Lone Candle, where I have wonderful, beautiful, incredibly insightful conversations with random people on the internet. Or actually, I already had the conversations, and I just reread them and talk about them with you. Right. Today, it's trans issues. Trans operations, injections, whatever else you do to them for kids. Should they be banned? Several states have banned them already, and some countries. Let's talk about it. So, I'm commenting on this. It's an interview about it. This is it. And I had a few comments, two of them which produced some reply guys to me, which then created a conversation. All right. So, and I have actually tried to do this one before, and I did this, and it took like 45 minutes, but for a reason, it wasn't recording my voice, so I deleted it, and now I'm trying again, like a month later. All right, so this is what I said. The barrier for straight up banning a medical procedure needs to be very high. The evidence needs to be very clear that a procedure is always bad, or else the government should not ban it in a free society. If some medical professionals are not doing their due diligence when doing such procedures, then criminal and civil malpractice laws should be executed like for any other medical malpractice. So, if you believe in freedom, if you believe in limited government, then the government saying, nope, we're banning this, should bother you a lot, and you should have a high barrier for that. So, in a situation where a child, a parent, and a medical professional all say, hey, we want this medical intervention, we think it will be a net good to have this medical intervention, it would be an insult to freedom and liberty itself for the government to stop you. Now, of course, there should be an exception if this is a procedure that really has been proven to never be good. If it's like, no, this doesn't work, ever. or even something very close to never, then yeah, banning it is a fair game. But outside of that, free society, people should be able to make their own choices. And again, even for children, assuming both parent and medical professional also agree. Now, if you got a medical professional out there doing poorly, not doing his due diligence, either doing the procedure badly or making a bad decision of whether to do the procedure, well, yeah, other criminal and civil laws already exist, and those should be executed on those people. But you don't need to straight up ban it, which is what I'm arguing against here. All right, so Mr. Sherman here said lobotomies are a good example. So yeah, lobotomies, they take a piece of the brain out that was supposed to help people. That procedure used to be done, and we figured out, no, that doesn't work. And so that would be a legitimate ban. Jason says, you have it upside down. In medicine, it is the procedure or drug or medical device, etc., that must be justified, not the limitation. Well, I think my point went a little over Jason's head here, because I'm talking about the government banning something, in which case the burden of evidence and logic is always on the burden is always on banning it. If you want to ban it, you got to meet that burden. It needs to be a high burden. Now, of course, the decision to do a procedure, you need some reason to think it's going to work. You shouldn't just do a random procedure. You shouldn't do a procedure that has repeatedly been proven not to work. And of course, a doctor operates in that way, should be sued, lose his license, and maybe even have criminal charges. But still, whether or not you ban something, that should have high barriers. So he's not even really responding to me. So it's kind of almost, sometimes people so don't really talk to me that I don't even know how to respond. Oh, but of course I did. I said, in a free society, it is the government banning things that must be justified. The medical procedure is justified by seeing the pain and sometimes suicide that some people go through, and by examples of it helping some people. I do think some doctors haven't been careful enough, though, because some people with similar symptoms are best without these interventions. Okay, yeah, so the first point is, no, I didn't really expand upon it, but essentially it's pointing out, whoa, we're talking about two different things. As far as the doctor deciding to do an intervention, yes, he needs some reason to believe it's going to work before doing it, obviously. But as far as banning free peoples from doing things, and in this case, if a child, parent, and medical professional all agree, well, that needs to be a really high bar if the government's going to straight up ban it. Now, on the procedures we're talking about, which is a series of procedures or some different things that are done, I've looked into this before. There's a big scientific literature on it, and frankly, the scientific literature is really mixed. It's tough because you have a group of researchers who clearly are pro-intervention, and another group of researchers are clearly against intervening. And you can see it in their work. They make mistakes. It's not as well done as you like to see, and it's really a heated, biased argument in the scientific literature, and that's not good. And so the evidence for intervening children really is mixed, and doctors need to be really careful about intervening, because a lot of these interventions are not reversible. Some, it's debatable whether they are or not, but some of them are not. They have serious impacts on the children, and a lot of children who think they have gender dysphoria, I apologize that I can't pronounce words correctly, there's a lot of different psychological problems that will make a child act like he has gender dysphoria or think he or she does. So you really want to be careful to make sure they really are a strong case for it before intervening. And I definitely think doctors have not always been careful enough. That said, there is some evidence that it works, and there's individual examples of people who've had this done to them, and they seem to be living life really well. And so there appears to be examples of it working. So for the particular procedures we're talking about, there are reasons to believe it could work. Right. All right, this person says medicine is evidence-based, which is kind of a similar point here. Otherwise, the Hippocratic Oath mandates the principle, do no harm. Someone else says do no harm, and so I'll deal with that when they do it, which I think is why I didn't reply, because I believe I just responded to this to someone else. Because even though they all say 1 month, they weren't like all in the same day. Okay. I hate, by the way, that YouTube says 1 month. Just give me the date. That's what I want. I want to know the exact date. Don't sum it up for me. I don't care if it was 20 years ago. I don't want to know that it was 20 years ago, YouTube. I want to know exactly when it happened. It should just say a date. And look, there's plenty of room for a date here. So there's really no excuse. Get better, Google, because Google owns YouTube. Anyways, cosmetic body modifications to obscure reality are not medical procedures. So of course he's just denying that they're medical procedures in the first place. So they're definitely not meant as purely cosmetic. They're meant as, oh, you're diagnosed with gender dysphoria, something that's been well studied, that we know exists, where people have their gender and their sex all mixed up. And there's arguments by medical professionals and some researchers that these procedures help. So it's not cosmetic. It's clearly medical. You can disagree whether the medical procedures work or not, but you can't just saying they're cosmetic is silly. Gender dysphoria is the reality of people's psychology. Well, some people's psychology. Gender dysphoria is the reality of some people's psychology. The reality of gender is that it doesn't always match sex. The psychology of people's brains are real things. If they weren't, then you and I wouldn't be real, because we largely are our psychology. These are medical, not cosmetic. They are done to help people deal with the psychology of sex and gender not matching. Just calling them cosmetic is stating your conclusion as your argument. All right. So Midwest Con says, now is that Midwest Convention, or is it like Midwest Con, like he's tricking people? I don't know. Doesn't matter. All right. The evidence is clear. There is no benefit from these procedures, and all doctors that perform them should be in jail. This woman arguing for them should be too, in my opinion. He's referring to the person in the video above who's a trans man. But as I've already said, this is something I've looked into fairly deeply, and the evidence is not clear that there's no benefit. So that's just wrong. That's factually inaccurate. There's plenty of studies and examples showing people who appear to be better off from these procedures. That doesn't mean there hasn't been mistakes or that doctors need to be very careful about who gets the interventions. But it does mean some people benefit from them, and a free country shouldn't ban them. The guest should be in jail too? For what crime? All right, this person says it's all a show of force. I'm not exactly sure what they're talking about, but good. If a person with a mental health condition approaches a doctor and asks them to cut off their healthy arm or leg, would you say that's something we should support because it's a free society? Should that be covered by insurance, Medicaid, Medicare? I'm going to dodge these last questions because there's additional questions, and this is already going to be a somewhat long video. And because the first question is the one that we're actually talking about. You know, they're replying to me. They're coming to me on my terms. This is what we're talking about. We should support. Well, even that, not really. I'm talking about just whether we ban them or not. I'm not talking about supporting. I'm just saying, should we ban them with the force of government or not? That's all I'm saying. But anyways, it's at least closer to my the actual topic at hand. So let's answer that. And so one thing, it sort of implies something false about how the decision to have medical interventions on someone with gender dysphoria happens. A person or a child doesn't just go to the doctor and go, hey, I know I got a penis, but I feel like a woman. Can you cut my dick off? And the doctor goes, sure can. Let me get out that saw. The doctors very carefully study and diagnose a person. It's not just, hey, I want my dick cut off, please cut it off. Or, hey, I want the testosterone treatments. I want the chemical interventions. Please do it. It's not even just, hey, I think I'm a girl, even though I have a penis. Therefore, get me the intervention. No, there's careful study of the child before you intervene. And if there's not doing careful study, well, those doctors do need to be in jail and sued. But that's not about banning something. That's about there's pre-existing laws about medical malpractice and such. And so this sort of implies that's what's happening when it's not. Okay? No, the doctors don't just transition someone because they ask. They say, okay, well, let's take a look at you and let's diagnose you and compare that to previous situations and studies and see whether it makes sense to intervene. So it's not just a request for like a lip filler or something like that. It's a medical intervention where they have to successfully diagnose you. They have to diagnose you carefully and do what, based on their expert opinion, would produce the best outcome. Now, to their question, if someone with a healthy arm or leg and said, hey, should we support? So that depends. Is there many examples of people who have a healthy arm but just really want it gone and it's really bothering them, and then we cut it off and it seems to help them? Or is there many studies of this having been done or something very similar, and then it just improves themselves, and without it, they're more likely to kill themselves, but if you do cut off their arm, have those things been done? Is this an actual phenomenon that we've studied well and that we've defined, and that there's really good reason to believe that cutting off a healthy arm would make them better? If all those things are true, yeah, I guess so. I mean, it seems really stupid to cut off a healthy arm, but if there is good reason to believe that otherwise their psychology will have them do something really stupid like kill themselves, then I suppose so. However, there's an important asterisk here. It would take an asterisk here. I don't think any of that's done, but also you got to think about the psychology of this. Both a man and a woman are human beings. Both a man and a woman, even though there's of course on average differences between men and women, but they have a common human psychology. And if you're really honest with yourself, you can kind of get in touch with your feminine side if you're a man, or your masculine side if you're a woman, even if you're generally a masculine man or a feminine woman. You really imagine realistically how someone could have their wires crossed and really have their gender not match their sex. It's actually reasonable to believe that if you're really honest with yourself. And so it's understandable why someone could have their sex not match their gender. And then that makes more open the possibility that, making their body more like that actually would help them psychologically. There's no such thing as just a normal human who doesn't have an arm. Now, of course, people who lose their arm can live successful, normal lives. And some people might be born without an arm or a limb, but that's not normal. That's broken from the beginning. And so someone who doesn't have an arm isn't, just a different type of human. Like a woman and a man are both regular humans, like a normal functioning human. A person without an arm is missing an arm. That's just straight up your arm is missing. Like that is not a normal way of living at all. While being a man or a woman are both normal ways, and just switching you to be more like one or the other isn't making you fundamentally broken. It's making you just a different type of human. Now, I would agree the underlying condition is a condition but the implementation to make you more woman and more man, that's not fundamentally breaking you. It's actually just making your body more like your psychology. While your arm, if you're missing an arm, you're fundamentally broken. I mean, so I don't buy the comparison in the first place because of that. Now, like I said, and so I would be less open to that than I am to this. That said, I'm an open-minded man. If there is really good logic and evidence that supports, actually, some people who are going crazy because they think there's something wrong with their arm and there's not, or something like that, and you cut it off, it makes them live a normal, productive life. I guess I'm open to that. But where are those cases? Okay, I don't think they exist. But if they did, If they did, I guess I would be open to it. But generally, I don't think that evidence and logic exists in the first place. So my answer would be no, at least in the meantime. But also, I'm not even as open to that, because if you're really honest with yourself, a woman and a man are both human beings. And it's really easy to see how you could just have those mixed up, and you're just basically making someone a different type of human. Well, this cut an arm off, yeah, that's just broken. Now, if it was to save your life, hey, could you please cut off my arm because I have gangrene and we don't have whatever antibiotics or whatever stop that from killing my whole body, so you have to cut off the arm in order to save the rest of me? Well, yeah, I'm going to cut off the arm, and as soon as possible, because I want to get it before it spreads. And hopefully we have better medical ways to deal with that now. But yeah, there's actually literal medical interventions where you cut off the arm to save a person's life. I think we've gotten better at that now, where we don't have to do that very often, because we have antibiotics and stuff. But that literally was a medical intervention that we would do, and it did save people's lives. And actually, it wasn't one of those where the doctors just misdiagnosed it. It actually was. No, they did diagnose it. We just didn't have a better way to solve it. But that did solve it, just with huge consequences. All right. What was the question I was answering? If someone with a mental health condition asks, approach a doctor. So my answer is no. However, if there is significant evidence that actually helped them, I suppose you got to be open to it. And by the way, you notice my description about how that's fundamentally different. Just, hey, I'm a person without an arm. Well, that's fundamentally broken. While being a man or woman are both not broken things. If that's what I think about an arm, think about these things other people say. You know, some people say, when they're making fun of trans people, they will say, yeah, well, I'm a dolphin. Yeah, that's equally dumb. And it's like, well, no. Men and women are both humans. The idea that you might, just have whatever in your brain makes you more female, even though you got a dick, that's completely conceivable. Because they're both human beings. They're just little different types of humans. The idea that your brain is mixed that makes you more like a dolphin, that's nonsense. You know, you can't actually be a dolphin in any way. That's a completely different species. So it's not even really conceivable that you'd really be essentially a dolphin mentally. Like, you can't be a dolphin mentally. A man can be a woman mentally. A woman can be a man mentally, or at least very close to it. We're taking a whole bunch of things and shoving them into man or woman, so at least something close to it. But no human can actually be a dolphin mentally. And so that little ploy to make fun, because it's not just used to make fun of trans, it's made to make it look like, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. But no, it's not. What you stated is nothing like being trans. Having your sex different than your gender is far, far, far more conceivable than having the mentality more of a dolphin than a human being when you're human. And of course, it's even more ridiculous when you say, well, I'm a truck. Okay, because trucks don't have brains. Okay, where was I? Oh, well, let's see. What did I say this, huh? Okay, ooh, who am I responding to here? See? YouTube. Kim Sung the First. See, YouTube, it's not good at organizing these, because, see, here I'm responding to Kim Sung the First, but I don't see Kim Sung the First. So I don't know if it's just not showing me everything or not. Anyways, I'm just going to read it, I guess. Huh? There's lots of studies and examples of such procedures helping people. That isn't delusion. They also aren't always the right decision, and some doctors need to be careful when doing irreversible interventions. And I'm pretty sure this guy asked me this twice, and I respond to him down below. And so that's why I didn't respond here. As in, the exact same person asked a similar question. I'm like, well, I'm not answering it twice. So let's get down there and see. So this is a separate question, a separate comment I made. So me ReplyGuying on the same video. And of course, look, here's Mary again. And then people ReplyGuying to me. So let's see what I said here. Whether Douthat, this is the host, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, whether Douthat's position at the end is out of bounds depends on the policy implications, which Douthat did not make clear. If the implication is the government should ban procedures that parents, a child, and a medical professional all agree, and medical professional all agree are the best option for a child, then, unless there is strong evidence that such procedures are clearly bad, then such a ban would be an infringement on human freedom and an overreach of government power. All right, so here, Marylander said, read the Cass review and independent reviews of research that came out of Finland and Sweden. You'll see that there is no good quality evidence to support these treatments. Treating a mental health issue with interventions on the body is inconsistent with how we approach all other mental health disorders. And so this is really a similar point that they made with the arm one. So I think I answered them both here. Now, I've read the Cass review, or at least looked at it, and all these others, because I've done a deep dive on this before, and research on both sides is deeply flawed. Partly because it's very difficult to study. It's really difficult to study because you're doing interventions on the people who are most likely to need it in the first place, and the people who believe. The doctors who think, yeah, I think these interventions are a good idea, so they believe they work. And that means they would find it unethical to do it on someone who they think needs it. And so this is really hard to study. I have a piece on this, so you can look that up. It's going to be on YouTube. It'll also be on Medium and probably Substack. But enough to say, it's difficult to study, and as I mentioned before, the researchers are so biased, so the evidence is really mixed. But how he's describing it is just wrong. He's cherry picking evidence that goes with what he wants to believe, rather than looking at all the evidence and all the studies and researchers. And so it's mixed. He claims it's not. That's just not true. Regarding surgeries, these surgeries are the opposite of standard medical ethics, which requires a surgical procedure to restore either form or function. These surgeries do the opposite. They destroy the form and function of healthy body parts. And it's called healthcare, but it's really not. They are mental health conditions where people want their arms or legs cut off. There are mental health conditions where people want their arms or legs cut off, but we don't allow doctors to do that because it's unethical and dangerous. So I've already responded to the arm cut off thing. Yes, it's generally true that medical intervention, especially a surgical procedure, restores a form of function. It is a little weird, especially when you're removing a penis, you're actually, limiting function. And that's unusual, but I don't see it as a black and white rule that medical intervention has to restore function of a particular body part. It's, is the net intervention good or not? That's the question. And as the example I had before, if you got an infection in your arm and you don't have a way to actually heal the infection, cutting off the arm is the correct medical intervention. And so, even though it's destroying the body part. Why? Because even though you've lost the arm, you saved your life. And so, even though you've destroyed your penis, if your body more matches your brain, the hope is you're going to live a psychologically better life. And of course, if your psychology is messed up, good luck living life, man. And of course, people do a lot of these people do commit suicide. So that's the hope. And so, any of these black and white claims, hey, he got the science wrong. He's got a biased section of the science. It's actually mixed. And then he's making these black and white claims that really just aren't true. Yes, it is unusual, but unusual doesn't mean wrong. And so, those really aren't complete arguments there. Let's see. I've read them. There is a big debate in the scientific literature. The results of that debate is not a clear conclusion that interventions are always bad. We know there are people who seem to have benefited tremendously from such interventions. It isn't the proper role of government to tell the people who can benefit that, nope, the government has decided that you do not have the freedom to choose. Part of freedom is freedom to take risks. And that includes risks of children that child, parent, and medical professional have all agreed to. If the medical professional is really acting not based on evidence and without proper due diligence, then they should be sued and prosecuted under other laws. Not all medical interventions are going to look the same. Some will be more unusual. That doesn't automatically make them bad. Comparing someone whose psychology makes them want to not have an arm to someone whose psychology makes them have the attitudes of the opposite sex is silly. Not wanting an arm fundamentally doesn't make sense. Much of what makes someone a man or a woman is psychological, and it's not hard to see some people having the wires messed up so that their gender doesn't match their sex. I'm all for trying to convince doctors, children, and parents to be very cautious about intervening in such ways. I agree that the evidence is not very strong, but that's different than using the force of government to ban medical procedures that reasonably could help some people. Yeah, so I'm not exactly a pro-intervention because my reading of the literature is that the evidence is not very strong that these help children, these interventions help children. And so, if I was a parent and the child thought it had gender dysphoria, I would be very, very, very cautious and skeptical of such interventions. I generally think it's good to go through natural puberty and see what happens. But it's complicated, and there are serious arguments out there that, no, actually, for some children, going through natural puberty would be bad. And so, as long as parent-child medical professional agree, and the medical professional is doing its proper due diligence, not doing malpractice, I wouldn't ban it. It's because I have a bias towards freedom, and because I do think the evidence is truly mixed. All right. Denise says, but they can always choose to do this treatment when they are of legal age. An adult. Kids are told no all the time, and should be because they often change their minds. So again, it's not just about not telling a kid no. It's about a kid who wants something, a parent is also convinced, and a medical professional has diagnosed the kid and decided this intervention would be best for him. You don't give a kid any sort of medical intervention just because they ask. Not something like this. And so I said, not true. The treatment they do to kids is to prevent them from going through puberty and then use drugs to put them through a puberty that more matches their mind. Once you go through puberty, you are stuck with a body that doesn't match your mind. For some people, that is very hard to deal with. If we can identify those who would benefit from avoiding that, we can prevent that. This can only be done to people who have not gone through puberty yet, meaning children, not adults. So she's saying they can always do it as an adult. Yeah, that's just not true. As far as to prevent puberty, well, once you're an adult, puberty already happened. So you can't just always do it. It's not the same because the changes of puberty are permanent. And so if you can get them before puberty, you can stop them from going through the wrong puberty in the first place, the quote wrong puberty. And so there is real logic and reasoning to doing it as a child rather than as an adult. Even on this issue, kids are told no. Kids are not transitioned just because they ask for it. They have to be properly diagnosed by medical professionals. The standard certainly is not just transition kids because they ask. I do agree, though, that sometimes doctors are not careful enough. Parents and medical professionals need to be careful about transitioning kids because while some may have a strong and permanent case of gender dysphoria, others may have other issues that cause the kids to mistakenly and temporarily think they should be the opposite gender. Okay, this is a guy talking to Mary, not to me, and I think he's talking about problems with the cast review. These are now people are talking to each other. I don't care about that. I mean, listen to what they said was really interesting. This guy said something. I glanced at this and I misread what he said, and so he was actually agreeing with me, and I thought he was disagreeing with me, and so my comment kind of doesn't make sense. But still read it because it's still what I thought he said was something a lot of people think, so it's still worth putting out there. So it boils down to this. At the end of the day, even if there is some cause for pause when it comes to these medical procedures, when he said to this, he meant what I said. So it boils down to what you, Lone Candle, said. I agree with you. At the end of the day, even if there's some pause, freedom is freedom. We got to have liberty. But I thought he was saying it boils down to what I'm about to say. So it wasn't clear to me what this referred to. Did this refer to what he's about to say or what I just said? And I now realize it's what I said earlier, I believe. Anyways, I thought he was saying, oh, it gives us pause, so we should ban them, which was not what he was saying. But anyways, I said medical procedures are risky and therefore have cause to pause. If parents, child, and medical professional all agree, then the procedures should remain legal unless the procedures are overwhelmingly shown to always be bad. If the medical professional doesn't do proper due diligence, then they should be prosecuted under current law. All right. All right, Shannon said, start at the beginning. In order to justify an extraordinary amount of risk to a child, normal sexual development, and physical health, there first needs to be a highly reliable demonstration of extraordinary benefit. There is none. So first, do no harm. Okay, so someone else said do no harm earlier. So first, let's just deal directly with do no harm. And so there is this idea that a number one rule of medicine is do no harm. Hey, hell, as far as I know, they might even say that in medical school. But you know what? That's absolutely not an actual law that doctors follow. Because every medical procedure has a risk of harm. I think most of them do. A lot of people die in surgery. Actually, a certain percentage of people die in routine surgeries. Even like safe surgeries are not fully safe. So if you think about chemotherapy, that really hurts people. And people die even from basic medicines that, most people don't react to poorly, but that rare person does. So, yeah, medical interventions have risks. Some of them small, some of them huge, and we still do the medical interventions. So so obviously, do no harm is not how we actually practice medicine, nor should we. What we really want to do is there a good chance for a net benefit, or are the risks worth the potential reward? So do no harm is just not actually a principle. At least not one if defined as literally if there's a chance of harm, don't do it. So, and then she says, well, highly reliable demonstration. Well, again, she's making the standard actually too high. How confident you have to be that a medical intervention is going to work also depends on how confident we could be that without it, you're going to die, or there will be some other poor outcome. And so I think she's making such a high standard that we wouldn't actually apply to other procedures. Now, I agree. Generally, you want as much evidence as possible. But no, I don't think we ban procedures simply because there's not highly reliable demonstration of extraordinary benefit. When I take an antibiotic because I have a cold, which I don't, but some people do, you know what? That's not an extraordinary benefit. That just ends your cold possibly a few weeks earlier. That's an extraordinary benefit. Yet, doctors will give you prescriptions for antibiotics to end a cold a few weeks earlier. That's not an extraordinary benefit, and they have a medical intervention anyways. And so, no, the standard is not there must be an extraordinary benefit. And we're not in complete disagreement. I agree that doctors need to be really careful because they truly are risking and sometimes knowingly changing a child's normal sexual development. And so I agree they need to be really careful. But again, I'm talking about whether or not to ban it. And if you live in a free country, you shouldn't be banning things unless there's evidence is overwhelming that it is just straight up bad. Let's see what I said here. Many interventions for many ailments have high risks. People die in surgeries. Extraordinary benefit is a bad standard that would prevent all sorts of helpful medical interventions. Studies and many examples have shown that such interventions help some people. In a free society, a government shouldn't ban medical procedures unless the procedures are overwhelmingly shown to be bad. If the evidence is mixed, then in a free society, doctors, parents, and patients should make their own decisions and deal with the consequences. If doctors don't do due diligence, then they should be prosecuted and sued. Do no harm is not a real standard. Most medical interventions risk harm. Some result in death. Some have known harms that just have to be dealt with and are outweighed by the benefits. Okay. Let's see. Now these are two people talking to each other. They're not talking to me anymore. All right. I don't know if I missed any comments there, but I think we covered that. This happens to be something I actually have a piece on, which if you go to my YouTube channel, my Substack, or my Medium, you should be able to find it about whether or not we should ban interventions for gender dysphoria. And that has some more details, as well as a huge list of sources that I'm relying on if you want to go through those, if you really want to get into it. Anywho, I'm Blown Candle. I want you guys to like me, comment me, and love me, because I need love. I need it so badly. And I need you to love me. Because without you loving me, I don't know. I'm sort of just making stuff up. Anyways, end stream. Okay, let's see. What are we doing? Did this work? Refresh. It's the 15th. 40 minutes. That's fine. Let's see. January 15th. Still says live. It shouldn't still be live. And this should be showing videos. It still says live. That's really not good. I thought I stopped streaming.